is really going to be problematic. She's going to lose a lot of games this year, and I think that's going to wear her out. The reward for sacrifice and putting up with all the stupidity is, quote, well, at least we're winning. At least I'm having individual success. I think she's going to be denied both. And I think she's going to be mentally damaged, that she'll never be able to live up to her full potential.
There is a strange contradiction surrounding Caitlin Clark right now. On one side, Caitlin Clark is producing television numbers that the WNBA has rarely seen. On the other side, conversations about Caitlin Clark have shifted from basketball excellence to questions about endurance, pressure, and survival inside the league itself. The title of this story is not about whether Caitlin Clark can shoot from 30 feet. It is not about whether Caitlin Clark can pass through double teams. It is not even about whether Caitlin Clark can become a superstar. Most people already believe those things. The real question is whether the environment around Caitlin Clark can become so exhausting that it changes the entire trajectory of her career. That is the prediction being debated. While Caitlin Clark continues breaking audience records, attracting millions of viewers, and carrying unprecedented attention into women's basketball, there are growing concerns that the constant pressure surrounding Caitlin Clark may become as significant as any defense she faces on the court. Every game involving Caitlin Clark now feels larger than basketball. Every foul on Caitlin Clark becomes a national conversation. Every criticism of Caitlin Clark spreads across social media. Every success by Caitlin Clark sparks another debate about her impact on the sport, and yet the numbers keep climbing. While critics discuss whether Caitlin Clark is receiving too much attention, audiences continue choosing Caitlin Clark. While opponents attempt to make life difficult for Caitlin Clark, viewers continue tuning in specifically to watch Caitlin Clark. That creates a fascinating tension. The player generating the biggest ratings surge in years is simultaneously becoming the center of the league's most emotional controversy. The result is a story that feels bigger than wins and losses. It is a story about pressure, popularity, expectations, and whether Caitlin Clark's rise can continue despite everything surrounding her.
The most watched WNBA game ever on the network. 333,000 was their most watched game ever since 2010. Guys, that's 14 years ago. So, as you could expect, right there, she destroyed the ratings, set all-time ratings for the WNBA.
The numbers described here paint a remarkable picture. Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA carrying historic momentum from college basketball, but many wondered whether that attention would translate to the professional level. The answer appeared almost immediately. Games featuring Caitlin Clark began setting records across multiple platforms. Networks that rarely received national attention suddenly found themselves producing their largest WNBA audiences ever because Caitlin Clark was playing. That matters because television ratings represent more than popularity. Ratings represent revenue. Ratings represent sponsorship opportunities. Ratings represent advertising dollars. Ratings represent visibility for every franchise in the league. When Caitlin Clark steps onto the court, the audience grows. The discussion becomes even more significant when comparing Caitlin Clark's games to other broadcasts on the same network. The difference is not small. The difference is dramatic. For years, sports leagues have searched endlessly for athletes capable of expanding audiences. The WNBA may have found that athlete in Caitlin Clark, but success creates pressure. As expectations rise, every Indiana Fever loss becomes a story. Every difficult shooting night for Caitlin Clark becomes headline material. Every turnover by Caitlin Clark becomes part of a larger debate. The challenge facing Caitlin Clark is that audience growth alone does not guarantee personal satisfaction. Fans may celebrate ratings records, but athletes are measured by victories. If Indiana struggles, the conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark changes. Instead of discussing ratings dominance, people begin discussing team results. Instead of celebrating growth, critics start questioning progress. That is why the ratings story is only one half of the equation. Caitlin Clark has already proven she can attract viewers. The next challenge for Caitlin Clark is translating that attention into long-term competitive success. Because the larger the audience becomes, the greater the spotlight becomes. And the greater the spotlight becomes, the harder it is for any player, especially Caitlin Clark, to escape criticism.
So this is what he said. Quote, Take even Jackie Robinson, who faced death threats and had justifiable reasons to fear for his physical safety, but setting that aside, he could step to the plate and control his own destiny. In other words, he didn't have to rely on the play of his teammates as much. His level of success, he wasn't relying on Pee Wee Reese or anybody else.
The comparison being discussed here is fascinating because it focuses on something unique about basketball. Unlike individual sports, Caitlin Clark cannot control every outcome herself. Caitlin Clark can make the right pass and still watch a shot miss. Caitlin Clark can break a double team and still see a possession fail. Caitlin Clark can score efficiently and still leave the floor with a loss. That reality creates frustration for every great player. Historically, many transformational athletes have entered professional leagues expecting talent alone to solve problems. What they discover is that professional sports require patience. For Caitlin Clark, the adjustment is even more complicated because she arrived carrying extraordinary expectations. The basketball world watched Caitlin Clark dominate at Iowa. The basketball world watched Caitlin Clark become a cultural phenomenon. The basketball world watched Caitlin Clark generate record audiences before ever playing a professional game. Naturally, many people expected immediate domination. Professional basketball rarely works that way. Defenses have built entire game plans around stopping Caitlin Clark. Opponents pick up Caitlin Clark far from the basket. Opponents trap Caitlin Clark aggressively. Opponents force Caitlin Clark to make difficult decisions possession after possession. That level of attention is often reserved for established superstars. The psychological challenge becomes maintaining confidence while constantly facing extraordinary resistance. Every elite athlete eventually encounters adversity. The difference is that most athletes experience that adversity away from national headlines. Caitlin Clark experiences it in front of millions. Every struggle is amplified, every breakthrough is analyzed, every reaction is dissected, and that constant attention can become mentally exhausting regardless of talent level. The true test for Caitlin Clark may not be physical skill. It may be emotional endurance. It may be maintaining focus while carrying expectations that few rookies in sports history have ever faced.
We all should get the same publicity, and Angel Reese is just as big part of this. Everybody can see the hatred. It's over the top. I just don't think it's going to stop, and eventually I think it's going to break her. So, that may seem like extreme comments by Jason Whitlock, but she is putting up with hell right now. She is, okay? And
whether people agree or disagree with those opinions, one reality is undeniable. Caitlin Clark has become one of the most discussed athletes in American sports. That level of attention changes everything. For the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark represents a chance to transform the franchise. For broadcasters, Caitlin Clark represents audience growth. For sponsors, Caitlin Clark represents marketing power. For the WNBA, Caitlin Clark represents an opportunity to reach new fans. The stakes are enormous. If Caitlin Clark continues improving while Indiana becomes competitive, the league could enter a new era of visibility. Ratings could continue growing. Attendance could continue growing. National interest could continue growing. But if frustration begins outweighing progress, difficult questions emerge. Can Caitlin Clark continue carrying this level of attention year after year? Can Caitlin Clark maintain enthusiasm while facing constant scrutiny? Can Caitlin Clark develop into a championship-level player while simultaneously serving as the face of unprecedented league growth? Those questions remain unanswered. What makes this moment so significant is that Caitlin Clark is not merely influencing games. Caitlin Clark is influencing conversations about the future direction of women's basketball. Every great sports era eventually becomes associated with a defining figure. Many believe Caitlin Clark has the potential to become that figure. If that happens, the current struggles will be remembered as obstacles on the path to greatness. If it does not happen, critics will point back to this moment and argue that the pressure became too great. That is why the next few seasons could become some of the most important seasons in modern WNBA history.